Airrack is one of those YouTubers who didn't just rise to the top by accident. With his calculated moves, relentless uploads, and deep understanding of what makes content work, he cracked the code and proved the doubters wrong. But even with all that momentum, Airrack quickly learned that success doesn't make you untouchable. Because behind the viral videos and perfect thumbnails, doxing and carelessness of his challenges almost destroyed everything he built, but also sparked one of the most strategic comebacks on the platform. To understand how Airrack came dangerously close to destroying everything he built, we first need to rewind. Long before Airrack became one of the fastest growing creators on the internet, he was just a guy with a wild idea and nothing in his bank account. But what he did have was the willingness to risk everything. One of the biggest gambles of his career would later become the series that made him famous, the Couch series. On the surface, it looked like just another YouTube challenge, but behind the scenes, it was a carefully calculated and dangerously risky strategy. Airrack registered an LLC, not for legal protection, but so he could take out a business loan, and at that time, he had zero liquid cash to his name. With the loan secured, he went straight to work. He reached out to Logan Paul's assistant with an unusual offer. He wanted to buy Logan's iconic $90,000 Mercedes couch. At first, Logan had no idea who he was dealing with. To him, it seemed like just another buyer. But when they finally met face to face, everything changed. Logan realized this wasn't just some guy buying furniture. Airrack was doing a challenge, and impressed by the hustle, Logan gave him the couch for just $17,000. That single moment kicked off a series of insane couch-based stunts, from couch surfing to literal skydiving. Airrack turned a piece of furniture into a spectacle. And it wasn't just about adrenaline. It was about pulling Logan's audience into his world, one insane video at a time. In the end, the gamble paid off, and soon the numbers followed. Views started pumping, and subscriber growth was literally unmatched with any of the channels on the platform. Then, in January 2020, Airrack made a promise. He will reach 1 million subscribers before the end of the year. It literally sounded impossible, but Airrack doubled his efforts to achieve this. By early December, he was sitting at 750,000. And then in just 2 weeks, the unthinkable happened. On December 27, 2020, just 4 days before the new year, Airrack hit 1 million subscribers. He actually did it and proved the doubters wrong. But the victory came with a hidden cost, because right as the hype settled, the spotlight stayed on. That's when his fans started to question a few things, and the controversies weren't far behind. For a while, it felt like nothing could stop Airrack. He was climbing the YouTube ladder faster than anyone had seen before, turning wild ideas into viral hits and earning the respect of fans and creators alike. At one point, some even called him one of the best YouTubers on the entire platform. But as the bar kept rising, so did the pressure to deliver. And in 2023, something changed. Airrack wanted to keep the chaos going. But instead of pushing the boundaries like before, he crossed a different line entirely. Not by going bigger, but by faking it. It all started with one video in particular. On the surface, it looked like another classic Airrack stunt. Him and his friends trying to sneak into a music festival without paying. But something about it felt off. During the moment they jumped the fence, sharp-eared viewers noticed something strange. Sound effects of police yelling were edited in. Come! But no actual cops were visible. It sounded dramatic, maybe a little too dramatic. At first, fans chalked it up to creative editing, but the next part of the video changed everything. As Airrack and his crew walked through the festival celebrating their success, viewers spotted something that couldn't be ignored: a wristband. The kind you only get if you bought a ticket. The kind that proves you didn't sneak in at all. That tiny detail unraveled the entire video, and soon it came out. Airrack had made a deal with the festival. The sneak-in wasn't just staged. It was planned, approved, and recorded with full permission. For fans who believed his content was 100% real, it felt like a betrayal. But things were only just getting started. That same year, another video sparked even more backlash. One that didn't just involve faking content, but risking someone else's career in the process. Airrack had set his sights on a forbidden island in Canada called Angle Island. It was off-limits due to pandemic restrictions, but that didn't stop the plan. The idea was to fly in with a private pilot into what's known as a gray zone, essentially an airspace that's legally off limits. The pilot agreed to the plan only if his identity would remain secret. But in the final upload, something went wrong. Airrack claimed the pilot would be using a fake code name to stay anonymous, but the name they used wasn't fake. It was actually the pilot's real name. They literally shouted his name in the plane multiple times. In a region with only a handful of pilots, it didn't take long for people to connect the dots, and consequences came fast. On top of that, Airrack added sound effects that made the pilot look like he didn't even know how to start the plane.
Why would you start? God damn it.
That pilot, who thought he'd be protected, now found himself facing legal trouble and totally humiliated. And yet, the controversy didn't stop there. In the same video, Airrack and his team claimed to have successfully landed on the island, but behind the scenes, that wasn't true. According to the pilot, the landing conditions weren't safe, and they never actually landed. Airrack quietly cut the part from the video, and if you look closely, you can even see it. Houses in the footage that don't exist on Angle Island, but do exist back where they started. In one video, Airrack not only doxed the pilot, but misled his audience entirely. But things would get even more reckless. In another video, Airrack and his team tried to cross a frozen lake using a saw bike, a custom-built vehicle meant to ride over ice. It was pitched as a daring stunt, but during the ride, the bike suddenly fell through the ice and into the freezing water. At first it seemed like an accident, but on the second watch, it became clear the fall was intentional. You can actually see them pushing the bike through a weakened patch of ice. The moment didn't just go viral, it had real-world consequences. The local safety official who allowed filming on the lake ended up being held responsible. Once again, someone else paid the price for Airrack's content. And it didn't end there. Other uploads, like crossing America or Europe in perfectly straight line, were later debunked by viewers, proven to be staged or heavily edited. What started as authentic, wild adventure content slowly turned into fake content. And while Airrack's storytelling still pulled millions of views, it came with a ton of backlash. After multiple channels began exposing him, calling out inconsistencies, questioning the authenticity of his content, and breaking down the details, the fallout was massive. His average views had a dip, from a consistent 15 million views per video down to just 2 or 3 million views. That's nearly an 80% drop. For a creator at his level, it showed that his fans had lost trust in his content. In the eyes of the community, Airrack had let them down, and Airrack knew it. But instead of disappearing or making a dramatic apology video like most creators do, Airrack chose a different route. When questioned about the controversy during a few collaborations, he explained that the videos in questions weren't fake, but rather pre-recorded backups used to keep up with the intense pace of daily uploads during his Around the World series. But that explanation didn't land the way he hoped. Many saw it less as an explanation and more as an excuse. Still, Airrack didn't try to defend himself further. He simply kept uploading. But behind the scenes, something had shifted. Airrack knew he couldn't just ignore the backlash, and he had to earn the trust back. That meant changing the way he made content. A clear turning point came with one specific upload, a collaboration with the Guinness World Records Committee. In it, Airrack set out to visit the most fast food restaurants in just 24 hours. It was fast-paced, real, and fully verifiable, which made no room for doubt. From that moment on, Airrack started leaning into content that felt grounded. The high-concept stunts that made viewers question what was real weren't on his content schedule anymore. Rather, he started doing simple challenges, pranks, and even collaborations with top-tier content creators. And with every upload, the audience slowly started returning. A key part of his genius comeback strategy was collaboration. Airrack began teaming up with major creators like MrBeast, Ryan Trahan, and IShowSpeed. By surrounding himself with trusted figures in the space, he subtly reminded viewers that he belonged there too, and the numbers began to reflect it. While he hasn't fully reached his peak, Airrack started doing much better. His monthly views are now averaging around 138 million. In June 2025 alone, he gained 250,000 new subscribers. At his peak, that number was 450,000. But this steady return showed that the redemption arc was real. For example, his recent I Secretly Hidden livestream watching videos, with Kaizenhead and MrBeast both have around 10 million views. What made the series even more memorable are the stakes. If viewers catch Airrack in any of the streams, they get a point. If he loses the challenge, he has to complete whatever the top comment says. In return, this created a loyal fanbase that keeps returning to every upload to see what crazy challenge he might have to complete next time. But the biggest sign that Airrack had truly turned things around is his startup educational company. In the middle of rebuilding his brand, he launched a startup called Creator Now, which is a platform focused on teaching others how to succeed in the content world. The idea took off, and eventually it grew big enough to get acquired by none other than VidIQ themselves. In the end, the strategy worked, because sometimes the best way to respond to controversy is to just keep showing up and doing better.